two chairs in the back, you have to get here 8:45. I got here 8:45, and Mike and Jeff were already situated and ready to go and attentive, and there was no one else in here. So to you guys go the two seats in the back. So welcome. It's wonderful to see everyone. So today, we'll spend about an hour together talking, hopefully conversationally, about a few different things. And, the foundation, hopefully, this, I was talking to someone the other day about this, this graphic. And I was saying my perfect world is where we are in a state where this becomes obsolete, meaning it's no longer even having to be a reference point. Because that would be my ideal, meaning that we're so ingrained on a daily basis doing what we do that we don't have to have a reference to look back on. It's helpful to me because it grounds me. Every once in a while where I feel like if I'm going off course, it enables me to go back and say, okay, what is my purpose? What am I doing here? And it helps me to think about, are we developing systems to advance our city's mission? Are we supporting each other in what we do? Do I hold up to the leadership pyramid? I've even seen, and I'll call out one department who gauges another department in a very jovial way on whether or not they're upholding the leadership pyramid. And I didn't know, but it's a plus-minus situation. So if the person slips in a certain area, then the little sticky comes off that trait. And they do it in a fun but productive way of tracking how they are holding each other accountable to the leadership pyramid. So what I'd like to talk about today is each of us. So what is our overall city mission? I mean, simply quality, service, innovation, leadership. But I want to talk about our purposes. And about 2 years ago, and time flies, I sent out, and most of you, or a lot of you, are in this. This is a 23-page document that's compiling everyone's responses to a simple question: what is your purpose? And what's remarkable to me is there were about 80 responses, 20 pages, so it was about a quarter page each of people telling me what their purpose is. And there were some eye-opening things that were said in here, remarkable things that really made me reevaluate the way I look at things. So my question of each of you is to take a minute, if you have that ability, within a minute or two, to jot down what your purpose is. So take out a piece of paper. If you don't have a piece of paper, borrow one from your neighbor. Yeah, so we've got it down here. So you spend at least 8 hours here a day, some of you 12 on shift work, some of you, who knows how long you spend depending upon your role. And what's your purpose?
What is my purpose here in the city, or what is my purpose overall?
You define it within the realm of your role here at City Hall. Or within the city. Your role as, we have our home role, and we have our city role. Define it within your city role. So this is hopefully an evolutionary process throughout our lives that we think about our purpose and it evolves. Because I'm guessing maybe your purpose 10 years ago isn't what you find your purpose to be today. Maybe it is. And that you shouldn't be, you never should feel it to be a limiting force. It should be an expansionary force, something that allows you to grow and see challenges ahead of you. So I am going to ask you to take a quick moment, just to the person next to you or within groups of three, just to quickly share with the person next to you what you see your purpose is. And remember, there's no wrong answer here, so you shouldn't feel hesitant and feel like, I got the wrong answer. This person's answer is better than mine. So just take a quick moment to do that, please.
I always look at it as like we're working on it. It's like it goes back to personal goals, right? You know, when you're start complaining. There you go, that's good. We got names. Did you guys get shows? What's that? Okay, I'm going to give you 2 more seconds around it. I did
Okay. So I hope it sounded productive to me. I hope it was. So maybe eye-opening to you. Maybe someone shared something with you that you thought, well, I never thought about it that way. Maybe it helped you to redefine your purpose. My hope is that by the end of our conversation today, you will have had the opportunity to think about your purpose and possibly redefine it and re-look at what you do on a daily basis and how that might be aligned or not aligned with your purpose. If you feel like, wow, what I'm doing on a daily basis doesn't really perfectly align with what I see my purpose to be, and how do I align those two things? So we're going to take a moment and we're going to listen. Actually, I'm going to introduce you to a town on the East Coast, and this town is the town of Eastport, Maine. And some of you have had the benefit of hearing this this audio clip. And some of you haven't, but it's what my ask of each of you is that as you listen to this gentleman, and you will take it one slide further within Eastport, Maine, who works at this facility, this port, and he's going to tell a story. And what I'm going to ask each of you is, as you hear the story, and if you hear something that strikes a chord with you, just jot a note. And we'll take a moment to talk about what from this story, and it's about 3 minutes long, so you get some bearing on it, what from this story may strike you. So.
This is Marketplace from APN. I'm Connor Russell. I got an email from Jim Fowler the other day, his idea for the next installment of our series, American Futures. I've got the perfect place, he wrote, but you're going to have to travel a ways to get there.
We're going, we don't need roads.
Sir, 4350, we have got Tango for Landon. Destination is in Eastport, Echo, Papa Mike for 50.
Jim, the national correspondent for The Atlantic, and his wife Deb are flying around the country in their own plane. 4 seats, 1 engine, a Cirrus SR-22 for the aviation-minded among you. They're stopping where they like, with us riding along every now and then, building a picture of what the American economy looks like. For us, today, the American economy looks a lot like this. A warehouse up on a hill, overlooking a pier so big it could be an airport runway. A warehouse that's filled with dried wood pulp on its way from the woods of Maine to China.
Can we duck into the warehouse just to get a sense of how much pulp this is?
Yes.
Oh, man! This is unbelievable.
Speed of this is incredible.
This is what? Is this a football field, you think, probably?
At least
You hear that
400
there?
feet. 400 feet.
Boy, it's more than a football field,
Yeah.
and it's a football field wide, and it's stacked how high?
Each one of those is about 5 feet.
5, 10, 20 feet high, football field by a football field. I'm gonna have to do the math later.
Yeah. But they usually load anywhere from 12 to 15 of them on a truck. And they take them down there and the crane just picks the whole lift up.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that we gotta see.
Could be a warehouse in any huge port city, about to load cargo onto a ship waiting right outside and send it off to Europe or to Asia. But we are in Eastport, Maine, population 1,331. The New England fishing village that's just about as far east as you can get in this country, or as Chris Gardner prefers to say,
We are standing at the deepest natural seaport in the continental United States of America.
Chris Gardner, shaved head, goatee, a body type usually referred to as fire plug. Also a relentless advocate for this town and for the port that he's been in charge of the past 5 years. As he stands overlooking that enormous pier, he believes fundamentally that they can do anything here because that deep a port so far east means he can get bigger ships across the ocean faster, no matter what the cargo is. I'm gonna let him tell the story.
Well, in 2010, I was sitting in my office, and my then general manager here at the port, Skip Rogers, called me and said, "We just had a gentleman call, and he wants to ship cows out of Eastport." I said, "Okay, alive or dead?" And he chuckled, and I said, "Don't act like that's not a serious question." Well, he says, "Oh, they're alive." I said, "Okay, that's step one." I said, "How are we going to ship them?" "They want to stuff them in boxes." Of course they do. They want to stuff live cows in boxes. And he said, "And oh, by the way, they're pregnant." I said, "Of course they're pregnant. Of course they're pregnant." So they want to ship live, pregnant dairy cattle in boxes out of Eastport, Maine. He said, "That's exactly the phone call that I just got." I said, "Okay." He said, "What do you want me to tell him?" I said, "Tell him yes." And there was a pause. He said, "What do you mean, yes?" He said, how can we say yes? There's permits, there's issues, and cows in boxes. How do we? I said, "Skip, you never leave with no. That crazy phone call that you just got, somebody else is going to get. It's going to be just as crazy to them as it is to us. But you call them back and tell them, not only can we want to." And as a result, we have parlayed that into almost 40,000 head of cattle exported here since 2010.
You never leave with no, Chris said. So in this tiny little town, a place where the economy's been lousy the past decade or so, there are now huge cargo ships with pregnant cows being shipped out to Turkey and wood pulp going to China. Eastport is so small that the lobster docks are just a 10-minute walk or so from the cargo pier. And late in the afternoon, boats are tied up there by the dozen.
Hey, you guys going out or coming in or standing around? What you doing?
Wait for the fuel.
Waiting for fuel. All right, come on. We're gonna come down and say hi. First of all, do me a favor and introduce yourself. Tell me your name.
Jesse McPhail,
How old are you, sir?
33.
You been doing this your whole life?
For a while, first part of my years, I didn't really want to work with my father, so I tried a bunch of other stuff.
So that was not from a leadership blog or anything? That was just a daily snippet from the radio about what's going on in our economy, in our national economy. And so, obviously I wouldn't have shared it if it didn't have an impact on me at least. What from the story had an impact on you? What made an impression upon you? I just wrote something down actually that I didn't catch in my 2 dozen times of hearing that story before. So I wrote something down new on my pad over there. And it'll be interesting to see if you guys caught it as well, maybe you did as well. What do you have?
Liberty with no.
Very good, all right. Done it before. Never lead. No. Tell them yes? Yeah, and he did that with that accent, and that kind of, for some reason that hit me as well. Tell them yes.
Someone else is gonna get that crazy phone call?
Someone else. So in other words, if we don't see that someone else will.
He spoke with pride and confidence.
I like that. Crazy phone call. So that's not a good observation. Spoke with pride and confidence, yeah?
Not only can we want to.
I like that one a lot. Not only can we want to. So that goes beyond yes.
There's always going to be hurdles, but it doesn't mean it's not possible.
Always hurdles. Say that again? There's always hurdles, it doesn't mean.
There's always going to be hurdles, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. Like when he's talking about there's
Yeah.
permits. I know, sorry.
You ate one of those yummy bars, huh?
I didn't know you were going to ask.
So there are always hurdles, and in our world, this defines us in a lot of ways, because we have policies that define what we can and can't do. And so actually, this is the easy part of telling people the hurdles, but not necessarily finding what's possible, what's out there. Anything else?
Where we are going, we won't need roads.
So there's the innovation. We are, okay, where we are going. Did you guys recognize where that quote's from? There you go. You want to age yourself. That's Back to the Future. Okay, so you didn't hit the one and it's like I said, it took me a dozen times listening to catch this one. And it was at the front end of it. So I was a little spoiled because I had already heard it so many times that I was probably, my ears were attuned to different things. So the announcer, Kai Rizdal, said, what was the guy's name who's handling it? I forgot. Chris? The guy who's shaped like a fire plug? Yeah. That Chris believes they can do anything there. And it's just, I had never heard that before. And so for me that was, so they can do anything there. Any other observations?
I guess it's only a crazy idea, because they didn't think of it first.
So it's a crazy idea because
They didn't think of it first.
yeah. So how we define that crazy phone call, that crazy idea? Is it is our initial reaction that it's crazy, but can we calmly, coolly, rationally look at the issue and just say, well, maybe this isn't crazy.
It's a great idea.
It's a great idea. And how many of those times have we heard something that we thought was a crazy idea? And then later on you find out it was a crazy idea, but it was a great idea. So thank you for listening to that. Thank you. So in terms of Chris's purpose, so who do you think who was he talking to when he got the phone call? Was it another employee?
Supervisor, right?
Okay, and his supervisor? So that was my impression, that he's talking to his supervisor. And he's saying to his supervisor, you know, he's defining his role outside of his boundary. I mean, his supervisor has seemingly to me, there's a boundary in which it's less than stellar. What's an inspiring color? I thought it was red. Purple. These are really old. They sit in my office. Here within this box is Chris's scope of authority. This is what's in John. This is probably what's in funny. I'm going to go with Chris. Because you said it's Chris, right? And then later we're going to listen to it and find out it's not. So this is within scope. This is Chris's scope of authority. And what I'd like to talk to you about is this area outside of Chris's scope of authority that he seems to have ventured into. That he keeps. This is the wood pulp guy. This is the shipping cows guy. This is the area. This is where his formal boundary. This is his formal area. I like black, man. That stands out. I feel like you guys remember Bob Ross? It's just like that black is wonderful. I like throwing some trees up in the corner. Okay, and so in here is his informal authority. So what he's doing is he's going into this boundary, and I'll just say it's a boundary, you know, this is where you can find innovation, the crazy idea that becomes the good idea, that's outside of this formal scope of authority. And he's actually getting permission from his boss to operate in this area. Now, if he's in a high-trust relationship with his boss, I'm going to suggest that Chris could actually probably operate within this scope, knowing that he has the tacit authority of his boss. That his boss is going to have his back, if you will. Is going to be there to support him when he goes out into the spectrum around here. But in this area also, I will suggest, this is the area, there's a certain amount of risk that occurs in here. And this is where each of us evaluate and calculate how much risk am I willing to expend in order to go beyond my formal scope of authority into the informal area. So do you have what are some ideas on how you already trigger yourself? What are some systems that you have in place where you trigger your mind to go outside of that formal and into the informal? And I'm going to just set this up because I didn't ask her before, but I know, Diana, you said there were 3 questions that are prompts that I thought were really good prompts that go into this area right here. And what are those 3 questions?
Why, what if, and how might?
Okay. Why, what if? And how much? So it's Chris saying, you know, why? Why not? And what if we do this, and how might we do it? You know, not only the cows, they're live cows. Yeah, right. How are we going to ship them? In boxes. Yeah, right. You want to put them in boxes. And how many was he shipping to Turkey by the end of it? 40,000 heads. You know, starts with a crazy idea. Next thing he knows, he's making money shipping cows. Because once again, someone else is gonna get that crazy phone call, and they're gonna say yes to it. So he's gotta be the first guy to be out of the gates to do that. So that's a prompt to get us into this, either individually, in our minds, or in a group, when we're meeting with each other, how we take ourselves outside of that boundary. Any other ways that you do this? It might be a personal example, or it might be a group example that you use.
Just have a mindset of not closing opportunities, being open-minded.
It's open-minded.
Yeah, basically, don't be careful not to promise something that is beyond what you can promise, but I think too, don't exclude things unnecessarily.
So that goes back to never lead with no. No's the easy answer. As you know, no is the default, keep doing your job, we're fine, don't worry about it, everything's okay. No is the status quo. No is inertia. You know, in physics, where something is moving in a certain direction, absent something hitting it off, it just keeps going. And so many organizations are just in a state of inertia. We keep doing the same thing over and over again. I would even argue that this is where you have fun in your job. This is where you're just kind of droning away, trying to look at your watch, trying to figure out how many hours are left in the day. This is the where you have conversations with your, either within your team, or frankly, sometimes the best conversations are with people in other departments, and you expand your scope of thinking by, again, becoming aware of what they do in their daily job. This is the, I'm going to just write down fun. So that's mine. I get to do that. So, I've got notes and I've never written down fun before, so I will. That's my bias. Before, Tom mentioned something, but there was something else that someone said also.
Yes, Steve. For me, it's living beyond the now.
Okay.
So in the now, we can become very comfortable. So within that circle, we can become comfortable. But getting outside of that circle, there's a certain uncomfortableness.
So I like that. Beyond. So this comes with discomfort.
Call that the danger zone?
That's the danger zone?
And the comfort zone right in the middle there.
Alright, so let's discomfort.
Now I just watched my version.
And this is your comfort zone.
I call it coasting.
Coasting?
Yeah. Coasting or going downhill is never good. So you need to be outside your box. You always need to be working hard and climbing that hill.
Climbing the hill.
Challenge. Yeah. Exactly.
So that it's an illusion to think that you can stay in your comfort zone and be an effective leader. That's my opinion. There are, if you're going to make progress, you are not going to make everyone happy. I'm just going to tell you that now. And this goes against my grain, because I am naturally wired to want to make everyone penalty time for shame. We're going to have you cleaning the board after class. Your job, I mean, my desire is to make each and every one of you happy. The reality is it's not, I can't do that. This is the area of growth, and with growth, oftentimes comes change, and with change comes loss. So my job is to minimize the losses and maximize the gains. Okay? And that's an equation. I'm trying to minimize the losses, I'm trying to maximize the gains, but trust me, that's imperfect. There's always going to be someone on this side of the ledger who's losing as a result, who doesn't see it optimistically. But we have to do, if we do it in a caring fashion where people know that it's not, we're not doing it, let me just say you gotta care about what you're doing, in my opinion. If you don't, then it comes across as being callous. And people can read that, even if you use words that sound comforting. So this is growth and challenge, which is somewhat just a reiteration of what is being said. But note that it's not all glory out here. Now, this is risk. This is discomfort. So it's not like you can leave your scope of authority into this informal area and do it easily. You also, there's risk in being, what I'll say, not my word, but someone else's, deauthorized. Okay? So here's your authority. If you go here, you risk being deauthorized. So I have to be careful and cautious and not just give you this rosy picture where you think I'm leaving this conversation, and guess what, man? I'm going out of my scope of authority. I'm going out into this informal area, and it's going to be all glory. So it's a calculation that, you know, for me, I can't tell you that I've always been in this. I've been in some roles where I feel like my informal authority is as far as I want to go. I've been in other roles where I have to be more cautious about going out into here. But this is also the realm of, I'll say, passion and purpose. And when you have a sense of passion and purpose outside of your formal boundary, sometimes you just can't help yourself but want to go into this area. Maybe it's something, and this isn't, I don't mean to say, oh, this is a terrible risk area, but if someone's going to their boss and saying, I really want to serve on the 97% team. And the boss saying, well, why? Why do you want to do that, man? You got a job, you just need to do your job. No, I believe that we can help make a difference, and I can get integrated with other departments, and we can advance our purpose here more so. I believe that I want to get involved in the digital front door team, because our department doesn't do enough in getting the good things we do out to the public, and I believe social media will help us do that. And there's that passion and purpose that comes. This should be, going back to the fun area, if you can merge these things together, it's a place where you enjoy being. It's a place where you don't mind maybe if someone says, well, you have to give up your lunch hour. It's like, I don't care, man. I'm working through in order to participate in this. And so that becomes that passion and purpose. What are some other ways that we can get ourselves into that area and outside of just the norm? Innovation. So how do we, so innovation for me has been one of those words, so how do we get ourselves into that state of mind? So what do we, because I'll write down, so innovation. So, but how do we, because I would say that that's a great word for the whole boundary. This is an area where innovation occurs. But what system would you put in place to get yourself there? Think about that.
Problem solving.
So kind of a problem-solving mindset. So it goes back to this. So this is the problem-solving why, what if, and how might.
Steve, I think the way to get that mindset too is if you put the word risk on it inside of your scope of authority as well.
Yeah.
You're recognizing the risk of staying there.
Oh.
So you're analyzing that
awesome.
stagnant atmosphere. You're not having employee growth, you're gonna lose customers. You're recognizing that risk, and so that's gonna drive you to think outside that circle.
It's awesome. Thank you. I like that a lot. First, I thought that was a crazy idea. No, that's good. Diana. Behind Diana.
The second Diana.
The second Diana. You guys just did that on purpose, huh?
To consider the emotions that are in each realm.
Uh-huh.
So if you were to look at the inside I see that as, besides the scope of authority, and you have certain tasks that you're necessary to do in your job, it's also fear-based. It's anxiety, it's what if I don't get it done, I have deadlines, it's all the pressures, it's the challenges, it's what's coming next week, it's all the craziness that can be up here. And the outside is trusting, relaxing, the emotions that go with it is my point, sorry, I'm not clear. Obviously if you're in a management role or supervising, you trust, but then you verify that things are being done. And 9 times out of 10, hopefully you're really happy that you trusted because it was exactly what you wanted. And every once in a while there was some room for growth. But I think it's important to look at the emotions that a person could occupy in either realm, if that makes sense.
Sometimes I find that the people who are most unforgiving of themselves are the most unforgiving of others. So they're the hardest on themselves when they do something wrong, but that gets translated into they're hard on their employees when their employees do something wrong. Which you need to be introspective as best you can, because don't do that, or try not to. Or have a friend who says, hey, you're hard on your employees, don't do that. I don't know, I don't have good counsel for that. Besides, sometimes we all need someone watching out for us, be that a mentor, be that a colleague, who we trust to pull us aside when we're doing something screwy. I need people to tell me when I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing. We all want accolades. We all want that person to come to us and say, hey, you did a great job. We also want the person who says, hey, you really offended so-and-so the other day. And you're like, oh man, really? Yeah, you said this. It's like, oh man, I'm sorry. Versus being defensive and saying, they're just a sensitive person. They shouldn't take it that way. They're just going to have to learn how to get used to me. That's just the way I am. One's the progressive leader, one's the old leader who just is stuck in the mud. So that knowing that there's emotion in both of these, that your job is to be as unemotional as possible, but understand the emotion, which is impossible, by the way. But it's a reality where you have to know that. I'm going to say that this, based upon Probleem's comment of innovation, this is the realm of little q, little qs, little I, and little l. And this is the realm of big QS, big L, and big I. So those of you who don't know what I just read, ask your neighbor. So this, if we're going, you can function in a realm of quality, service, innovation, and leadership in this area, but you're doing it in a limited capacity. This is where you're able to figure out how to really, this is where, Chris was probably, I would argue, based upon the gentleman's reaction, that he's the kind of guy who's doing this. But when he was talking about shipping cows, he was in this realm. He was in the beyond the normal everyday. JP.
It kind of goes back to, when you started talking about the 2 different circles, it took me back to the leadership academy with UC Davis, the big L and little L.
Okay.
Because when you're inside that circle, it's your scope of authority. It's kind of like you've been given this supervisory position, and these are your, this is your job description. This is what you're supposed to do on an everyday basis. Whereas the little L is more of that leader that's inside of you, that's going to push yourself to do further learning and to get out of that comfort zone so that you can better yourself as a leader.
Yeah.
And so you're going out into that risk zone to make yourself a better leader, not necessarily just a supervisory role you've been given.
Yeah. That's a good description. And every leader, formal leader in an organization, wants to think that he or she has more power than the informal. But I will tell you, the informal leaders have more influence than the formal. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. Because sometimes our informal formal leaders evolve into the formal leaders. And sometimes the informal leaders become the biggest distraction in an organization because they're the first person to pull aside the new employee and say, hey, don't believe what they tell you. I'm here to help you understand what's really going on around here. By the way, your job is not to hire those people. but it happens. And so my hope and desire is each one of you has, as you're leading, you have that formal capacity, but you also have that informal influence over your employees. This is the do it because I'm in the position, do it because I told you so. This is do it because we're trying to improve the quality of life here in our community, and so we should all want to do this. This drives me because I see the purpose in it. This drives me just because you're my boss and you told me to do it. So as we seek to influence ourselves and others, we should be looking at how that informal self is a good leader. Diana told me that she was leaving early, and so don't think I said something because I know how stories go. You see how Diana just stormed out of the room. So now it makes it easier on this Diana, one Diana left. So so you can take this in two realms, and we're naturally egotistical. Just the way we're programmed. We look after ourselves, our egos, ourself. And so we're always thinking about this in the context of what am I doing and what is my boss doing to keep me back in this realm? You know, what is my boss? How can I'm trying to get out of here? My boss has pushed me back. Well, here, take it into a different realm. Take it to you being the boss or the informal leader, you know, the lead worker, the supervisor, the manager, the department head. What are you doing to encourage your employees, or at least don't discourage people to go into this area when they come to you and you're not saying no to them because you want them within a certain boundary? Letting them speak with pride and confidence without squashing their sense of self, encouraging their growth. And so take it from both perspectives, not only yourself as someone who's being supervised, but someone who is being a leader to others as well. Any other observations? I don't know, for me, these frameworks, these visual frameworks, give me a way of thinking about what I'm doing and saying, am I really advancing my purpose? Am I just in my comfort zone? Is that because there's a quote, and if anyone knows who says it, you tell me. If you're not growing, you're dying. So I looked up this quote on the internet yesterday, and it's got like attribution. Everyone said it. So if you find the person who actually originated that saying, you let me know, because I can't figure it out, because it's got all these attributions. But it's true. If you're not growing, you're dying. You're just in this. And my encouragement is that each day that you start, and we all go through our trials and tribulations in life, we do. But remember that each day you can redefine yourself as a person. And through what you've done thus far in life, people have defined you, whether you're an in the circle person or an outside the circle person. But don't let no one tells you where you are. You can change your actions and your behaviors so that you can start coming into this area. This is, you know, there's a person who went to the Innovation Academy who had a revelation that it still gives me chills to this day. The person was in this circle waiting for the right leader to come to lead him until he realized that he is that leader. No, the leader. Who's the leader you've been waiting for? Guess what? Sitting in the seat that you're sitting in right now. That's that leader. That's the person who all of a sudden realizes it's not someone else, it's me. I am that leader. And you can go into this realm out here, and always do it purposefully, not willy-nilly. You got to know your environment. So I really wish I knew which slide was up next, but I get going on these conversations. And let's just give it a shot. So these are the quotes. And so I'm really happy, though, that you came up with quotes that are not on this list. And not only can we want to. Say yes, you'll figure it out afterwards. From that great philosopher, Tina Fey, which is, go Tina. So what, it's the what is your current reality and how might you change it? So, how I ended up with all these pens in my hand. That's going to be really funny. You got this on video. Remind me next time not to hold these pens the whole time. Actually stuck to my hand. So your reality, like it or not, has been defined by who you are. And so as you look at your purpose, it would be interesting for you to take that sheet and talk to someone who is able to give you candid feedback. And just to be able to say, hey, how am I doing? How do you think I'm doing in fulfilling my purpose? Is it evident to you that I'm fulfilling my purpose? And if the person says, oh, that's a great purpose, Steve, but no, man, it doesn't. It doesn't align with what your daily actions are. And first of all, I should love that feedback because the person's not going, no, it's great, you're good. Yeah, and just moving on. Because that feedback, by the way, did me zero, did me nothing. It is not allowing me to grow and challenge myself when someone just goes, no, you're fine. But if someone says, well, have you thought about doing this differently? Have you thought about maybe getting out with the employees more? Because you say that you want to know people better, but you just sit in your office. And then you go and you think to yourself, well, yeah. And then you think of all the excuses that you could come up with why you're in your office, of course. Because I'm really busy, whatever excuse you have to tell yourself to protect your ego. But are you willing to say, that's an important thing. That is not aligned with who I want to be. So we have this infographic that's aligned to the culture, but this is us. We're an organization. Well, we're not. We're each individuals. And so each of us are defined by what we do on a daily basis. So that to become our culture is to become Steve. It's to become Bill. It's to become Claire. It's to become Pauline. Your habits, what you're doing on a daily basis, is all compiled into how your reality is being defined. And sometimes your reality, who you think you are, is perfectly aligned with others, and sometimes it's remarkably not. But you should never be discouraged by that. You should actually be inspired to change. I believe. Because otherwise you're letting someone else define you. And I refuse to let that be. So that's do you look at your purpose? Maybe you go back to the office and you change it. Maybe you decide that you want to do something different, and you want to be a different person, you want to be more in this realm, and that you've been in this realm right here, for whatever reason. And you can start thinking about how you expand your scope of authority into that informal area. Questions, comments, observations? Yes, Claire.
I just have an observation about when he initially, said yes. Is that he made the comment about that their harbor was very deep, that no matter the weight, like he had a confidence and a real knowledge of his facility and his physical, opportunities.
Yeah.
That allowed him to immediately move from, that to that, where now he's just figuring out how to do it. He knew he could do it because he understood no matter what the weight, no matter how big the ship, he could get it in there. And I think that's a big part of it. Knowing having that confidence in what the ability is lets you move back and forth.
It does.
Between those two things.
In fact, if you're going to go, if he blindly went into it, he'd say, tell him yes, we'll make it happen, whatever it is. And he was ignoring the actual limitations, where there are actually boundaries. There's a gray area, and then there's black and white. I always say that especially with the directors, I pay them to operate in the gray, because black and white's easy, you just go to the rule book. Gray is where you're able to find how to get things done still within the constraints of the policies and rules. And you have to know those boundaries of what you have, what you're able to do and what you're not able to do. It's a good observation. What else you got? Nothing? Nothing at all? Oh! If you have nothing, then I have something, because I've got 10 minutes left.
Do you know something from up the academy?
Yes, Jess.
The fire guys are always saying about like consistent daily actions, just giving that perfect effort. And so some days may not turn out like it was supposed to. You may have a rough day, but consistently coming in, giving that perfect effort, you know that you're doing something good. You know that you're on the right track.
So, you're absolutely right. And here's the challenge for you. What if you go back to your office and you reflect on this and you say, I haven't been living up to my purpose. I've been less than stellar in these certain areas. I have not been giving a perfect effort. Odds are you have a lot of colleagues who have been observing this behavior. It's not like this revelation. Maybe it's a revelation to you, but maybe all of a sudden you realize it's like, oh, it hasn't been a revelation to anyone else. They've been observing this behavior. So your ability now to change, you've been doing this for a long time, let's say. How long is it going to take you to have a meaningful impression on others where they sincerely believe that you've changed? So you've been this way for 3 years, for whatever reason. So I'm just throwing out a hypothetical 3 years. How long is it going to change? How long is it going to take for you to have a consistent, perfect daily effort, because you haven't for 3 years, in order to affect or make an impression upon people that you have sincerely changed?
5 years.
6 years.
It's gonna be ongoing.
Ongoing.
Mess up once and you're back.
Mess up once and you're back. There's no perfect answer. This is great. Throw out anything you want. What do you think? George?
So in doing that, Steve, it really brought to light what actually happens is your middle circle disappears and you have one large QSLI, and you're working within that innovative realm because your outer circle is going back into the inner circle and coming back and forth and really working that system like you just mentioned.
So do you think, how long do you think it would take for a person to be able to make that change, to really, I mean, they're going to be doing that, you know that, but from an outsider's perspective, that sincerely believes that they've really made that change?
Yeah, you're living it. It's constant.
It's got to be constant. I mean, I've known people who sincerely are surprised, and they're good people, and they've made, I've been impressed with their change. And then they'll come to me and say, why won't, I made a mistake, why won't people cut me some slack? Guess what, man? You've had consistent behavior over a course of time, and you've been doing a stellar job now for a year. But one slip, and guess what happens? Justin said it. It's like, I knew it. I knew it couldn't last. And they're going to put you right back in here. So it's a discipline. And those of you know, what's the root of the word discipline? Tony's always the one who says it.
Disciple.
Thank you, Tony. I remember from past conversations you and I are aligned on that. It's disciple. And all it means is you're a disciple to what you believe in. You're a disciple to your purpose. If you're going to be advancing your purpose, you better be a disciple to it, and therefore discipline comes easy, because it's what you believe in. It's your passion. It's your passion, sense of purpose. So discipline has this pejorative connotation to it, where people think, oh, discipline, probably because those of you of my era, when you did something wrong, probably disciplined you. My son may think he's being disciplined, but nothing like my father gave me. But we need to orient that back to the positive connotation that we should be disciplined and be disciples to what we believe in. So, good observation. Thank you. That was very helpful. What else?
Steve?
Yes, Justin.
I could be wrong, and I'd venture to say that a lot of the innovative companies that have thrived throughout time have probably never seen themselves with that inner circle. And what you're trying to do, right? You're here preaching and this stuff, and but how easy it is for one person within an organization to smash or put a lid on the process of removing that inner circle, so we as an organization can work in one circle, which is the outer sphere. And I think we all work with people that probably carry some of that baggage that, 3 years ago they had a great idea that maybe today somebody else is taking all the way to the top and making happen. And it's a unfortunate situation, and you're trying to put the right people in the job to be allow that innovation to occur.
Yeah.
But it's upon us individually, which is why we're all here, to ensure that we allow that free flow. If you want to even recognize that inner circle, which I don't know if that's, I don't even want to see the inner circle personally.
It's a good way of putting it, free flow. George, you touched upon it too. It's that, where this becomes, you're right, there's no inner circle. It just is. It just becomes, once again, going back to that initial slide, it's like, we don't need this anymore. Because we're living it on a daily basis. And if I'm eating right and exercising and doing all those things that I think should be aligning me with my life purpose, I don't need those little reminders. You didn't walk today, you didn't ride your bike today, whatever it is. I'm living it. So our ideal should always be in that realm of continuous improvement, that we should be at that organization where this no longer is defining us, where it's just be sense of being. But it's a framework. You might have your own purposeful framework that you use on a daily basis, or on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. So this isn't necessarily something that I'd say should override if you have a better system in place that works for you. It's just another way of doing things. Everybody thinks, we joke, I always, well, the leaders, the people in leadership positions know exactly what they're doing. No, everyone's equally confounded, okay? Maybe I've got a little more experience, a little more time in the job, but it's like you're taking the information you have to make the best available information to make the best decisions. So as you guys are doing on a daily basis, so am I, all right? There's no brilliance anywhere that you should say, oh my gosh, there's where all the answers are. So keep that open mind. Challenge the process to move outside of this, and challenge your people who you're in leadership roles to move outside as well, and be supportive of them. And when they screw up, say, hey, what did you learn from it? And when they do the same thing twice and screw up the second time, then you say, hey, what do we need to talk about? I'm not saying that you should be totally, open and permissive to the same mistake being made twice. People need to learn, and but you need to provide that fertile ground for people to grow in.
Don't accept no.
Don't accept no. Don't accept no. And where there's a will, there's a way. I had a department head come into me recently and give me, I'm just going to be very open saying this, and give me a pitch. And I said, you know that I have to say no to this, all right? The answer is no. And the person came back to me about a week later and said, hey, I figured out a way to do it. I said, that's good. I'm glad you figured out a way to do it. I was actually excited for the person. But they had found an innovative way of getting to where they needed to go. And I know them well enough that wasn't their way of saying, I did it anyway. but that they had found a creative approach working within the existing policies to get to where they needed to be. Yeah. So don't, never lead with no, tell them yes, and as Tina Fey tells us, just say yes and figure it out later. I mean, I know people who I know I've gone to them and the answer is no, and they just looked at me and said, I'll tell you what, give me 24 hours and I'll try and figure it out. And sometimes they've come back to me and said, I can't get you there. And other times they've come back to me and said, you know, I got a different approach that you might be able to take in order to get to where you're going. So actually their answer to my question was in fact no, but they figured out a different way to get to the result that I was desiring. So the easy thing would have just been like, the answer's no. Check the box, I'm busy, I got a lot to do around here. You know, go back to work. But instead, they took the time to think about it. So when you get that crazy idea from your people, your employees, someone brings you a wacky idea, I would suggest the best thing you can do is say, if you have time, use the Socratic method and say, tell me more about it. What are you thinking? And you might even say, that sounds like a crazy idea, but I'm willing to think about it. Or you just say, give me 24 hours. Give me 24 hours just to think about it, and then let's sit down. Because your gut reaction might be, that is just so stupid. But you can't afford to do that. Because guess what the odds of that person coming back to you a second time and bringing up that idea? No, they're not going to. Because last time you shut them down and told them their idea was stupid. So you just shut the door on a person who may have had a crazy idea, that may have come back, and on the third idea, really had a brilliant one. So don't get too wrapped up in yourself, where you think, hey, I'm busy, I can't handle this. The answer's no.
Well, sometimes you gotta look at your delivery too. When you get that no, sometimes you have to step back and look at how I presented that information.
How you presented it, you're right. Just like each of you, you know, sometimes you make a pitch and it goes over well, sometimes you make a pitch and it didn't go over well. So when we have presentations to the city council, if the city council gives us feedback, one of our first, that isn't positive in terms of our recommendation, one of our first critiques is, did we really frame the issue well? Or did we do our best in framing the issue? Or should we have gone back and was there information missing? Did we not do our due diligence? And so when you get that no, for you to be able to go back and say, what was my pitch? Did I not do a good job of presenting the information to the department head or to the boss, to the first level? Because sometimes it's the case where it's a crazy idea. Well, do a little research, excuse me, on your crazy idea too. Because if the person peppers you with questions and you have no basis of response, then you've lost credibility as well. Because it's like, oh, you bring these crazy ideas, but you have no substance behind it. So when you're making the pitch, know what you're talking about too. Know how deep your port is. Anything else? I'm guessing the next slide is something that looks like that, so that's the good news for me. Because I ran, well, we'll just say I started a few minutes late. Mr. Gale, do you have anything to offer to the group? Nothing to offer to the group. All right. That disappoints me. No, you know why?
Okay,
because
so,
he actually set something up, and unfortunately didn't work. One did. Well, you know what? Okay, one did.
Yeah. Mike, did you pick up the candy wrapper over in the corner? Or you did?
Yeah, I did.
Got one.
All right. So there are people who do their jobs, and then there are people who go beyond in doing their jobs. And by the way, you can't share this with anybody on. So don't share the content of what we did today for the folks on Thursday, just because that way. Although I'm trying to figure out how many people we have attending, and we have such a large group today. Maybe we'll have 5 on Thursday. So for the 5 people coming on Thursday, don't tell them what we did today, so it's fresh and new to them. But so Darren actually had an opportunity for 4 different people to get books with also, I think, had special prizes inside of them. So Jack, don't easily give the book away until you take the special prize, that went out of their way and just saw a piece of trash and picked it up. And there's a job that we're defining. Yeah. You know, that tells me a lot, right? So Kurtesh, you and Shane will be cleaning the board out. You've just successfully ruined my train of thought.
I didn't want to stop mid-presentation to pick that up.
Yeah. You're so darn courteous. So remember that the final lesson is that this, when you're outside of this doesn't necessarily mean doing your things above and beyond your scope of authority, but it's when you're doing things, you're looking at the city as a whole. You know, so my job, my purpose to share with you all, I figured someone would have asked me, but what the hell, I'll share it with you anyway, is to improve the quality of life in your vicinity. That's it for me. Now, if I took it a step forward, it's to inspire my fellow employees, not the organization, because the organization, once again, is this amorphous blob. But it's each of you individually to inspire you to improve the quality of life in your city through quality service, innovation, and leadership. But that's a lot. Someone just said, what are you doing here? I'm here to improve the quality of life. So for me, it's picking up a piece of trash on the street when I see it. Because my job is to improve the quality of life, then my opinion is that lessens the quality of life in the city when we have trash or those types of things. Now my job is to walk around on a daily basis and just pick up trash. Who knows, when I retire I might. But it's to find ways each and every day of what I'm doing. So the encouragement to each of you is to look at how you do your job and what are those extras that really aren't extras. You were walking into City Hall anyway and there was a piece of paper, and did it slow you down to pick it up? No, it didn't. You're on that way anyway. And so what are those little things that you can do to enter this room? All right. So, closing comments. Fantastic. Have a great day, everyone.